A little while ago, someone posted on the Happy Gilder Facebook group a question of how to achieve a particular effect in reverse glass. And that effect are these convex domes that you see in a lot of old Victorian pieces. In the industry, they're called punties, and they're achieved by using stone grinding wheels. So the wheels would be on a sort of lathe, and you would have your piece of glass marked out with sort of circles and different sort of scroll patterns, and you would kind of grind this into the surface of your glass. Now, the problem with that is these stone wheels are nigh on impossible to come by unless you've kind of handed them down from someone in the industry. So it got me wondering if there was a cheap way of doing this. And before I'd even gone down that rabbit hole, a guy called Patrick gave me this awesome idea or an awesome tip as to how people achieve this effect without the stone wheels. So I'm going to go through that process today. I'm going to be covering some processes that I've done in previous videos. So I'll rush over those bits and then put links to the full tutorials in the top corner here. But before we crack on with that, if you're a fan of reverse glass, sign painting, gold leaf, digital techniques and much more, then you're in the right place because that's all this channel's about, and I try to release a video every couple of weeks. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, there's a link to my Patreon in the description. I reward my patrons with a different vector design every month, early access to the videos, credits in the videos, and, bits and bobs that I upload to the Patreon page over the month. There's also a link to my Etsy shop and the Happy Gilder Facebook group, where we're nearly 800 strong now, all levels of skill, sharing ideas, really good place, especially if you're kind of just getting started. Anyway, out of the way, let's crack on with it. Right, so first thing I'm going to do, and I thought I'd just put this in here because I haven't covered it in any of my previous videos, is I'm going to cut my glass down to size. Now, I've got a pane here that I've already cut a few bits off. At the moment, this is 20 by 8, 8 being this way, and I need it 10 by 8, so I want to cut this in half. What I'm going to use to do that is this little tool here. It's got a kind of diamond tip on the end, and it's got a little ball on the bottom, which you can use to kind of tap to make the glass break, but this is a proper cheap one. I think this was like £2 or £3 with free delivery off eBay. There are better ones where you'd have the metal ball and, that tapping action is really kind of useful. This wooden one doesn't really work very well, but don't really need it for a simple cut like this. So all I'm going to do is just using this bit of MDF here, and bearing in mind the tip of this isn't right on the edge, it's in the middle of that, so it's a few mil in. So let's just turn that around. Hope that helps. Right, now the important thing here is to just be confident with one stroke. You don't want to do it and then think, oh, actually I'll go again, because if you leave a few, you're going to mess it up. I'm going to start and make sure that this little tip is right on the very end, and then just using one solid movement, just pull it like that. That's all I'm going to do using this tool, because I've made my score mark now. So let's just move this light. Now, just going to use something to get this edge off. So, just going to put that on the edge of a bit of wood, using the same bit of MDF that I used to score the glass. Just going to pop that on there. Let's just move this so you can see. So, press it nice and firmly, just going to karate chop that. There you go. There's my bit of cut glass. Nice and easy, no mess. Yeah, and that's that. Let's get started on making this look nice. So here's the bit of glass I've got prepped. So just walking you through this design, the middle bit and the bit which I've exposed already is going to be acid etched. The next layer is going to be a kind of bright line, which is just gilded, so no etching or anything like that. The next layer is going to be the drop shadow for the letter, and then after that is just the surrounding background, which is going to be painted as well. So way I've got here is I've done the design, I've vectorized it in Vinyl Master, I've then cut that out on a vinyl cutter, applied it to the glass, and then picked out the section that I want to do first, which is the acid etching. Now all of these processes have been covered before in previous videos and in loads more detail, so I'm going to put a link to those up here. I'll also put a link in the description. So if you've never done this before, you can go and see the step-by-step video of that. I'll also do the same thing for the acid etching process I'm going to do now. I will go into a little bit of detail with this, but the reason I'd rather direct you to the more detailed videos, because obviously, it's a dangerous substance. You can burn yourself. It can cause serious injury. I'll put a link to the safety precautions sheet in the description for the product I'm going to be using, which is Armor Etch. Now, you can buy this off Amazon, so it's not like kind of hydrofluoric acid, which I've used before for acid etching. This is available to the public, but that doesn't mean it's not dangerous. So I'm going to be wearing goggles, going to be wearing rubber gloves. I've got full body clothing on, but you've just got to take all these precautions. So let's start by getting our acid mix made up. So what I've got is my Armor Etch, plastic jug of water, some weighing scales, and this, which is an aggregate called mica. Now, don't confuse this with mica powder, what people use for kind of making epoxy tables. This is much coarser than that, so let me just show you. There you go. I'll put a link to where you can get this in the description as well. This is what kind of causes or creates the stipple pattern when you do acid etching. In the video that I've put a link to, which I'd much prefer you follow, I'll use lentils instead, so you don't have to use mica if you can't get your hands on it. So, here we go. First things first, let's start weighing this stuff out. Now, the ratio I want to be using is 5 parts Armor Etch to 6 parts water to around about 10 parts mica. Sounds like a lot, but I don't want this to be runny at all. If it's runny, you'll get a kind of frosted look. Let's start by putting the Armor Etch in the tub. So, get the weighing scales. I'm going to be using just an old toothbrush. Anything plastic will do. Just, it tends to be acid resistant. I would say there's probably an extra few grams on there. So, right, how am I going to do that? So 5 to 6. So I want to get that up to 44. Yeah, that'll do you. Pretty good. Now, tough bit. All right. So what does that mean? So 40. So I want to get this up to 100. God. That's probably about all right. Okay. All right. That looks a little bit thick. So I'm going to put a tiny bit of water in there. Something like that. Right. Let's start slapping this on. Okay, so the acid is rinsed off. This is where we're at the moment. I've removed the next bit, and that's the drop shadow. I removed the little circles because I don't need them anymore. So just going to move on to the first bit of painting. Now I'm just going to use black, and this is for the letters drop shadow. And I want to be relatively quick with this because I'm using this vinyl as a stencil, which I'm going to peel away, but I don't want to let the paint start going tacky because, the longer you leave it, the more likely you are going to get kind of rough edges when you tear that away or peel it away. So let's just get started. And where I can, I'm going to keep quite close to the edges. You know, I don't want to have great big thick globs of paint going over these edges, because, you know, the sort of thinner it is and closer to the edge, the more chance you've got of that really kind of neat line holding when you peel the vinyl away. So now what I want to do is remove the kind of, the excess vinyl to give me that nice sharp line. And to do that, I'm going to just be making a small incision in one bit of it, and picking it out with this, and then pulling it along the line that it's going to go down. Not upwards, I want to pull it along to kind of, you know, it just helps hold that sort of paint line a bit better. So I'm just going to cut that there. Okay. Yeah, that's coming off really nicely. I'm kind of turning the corners with it, you know, don't just yank it up, sort of follow it round. There you go. Let's do the same here. Nice little cut. And that paint is still very wet, as you can see from my fingers. The longer you leave this, the tackier it goes, and the more likely you're going to get a kind of a jagged line. Not just, it doesn't just look untidy, it also makes the edge of the gold sort of look a bit rough as well, where it sort of meets the painted area. So yeah, definitely in your best interest to work quickly and get it done while the paint's still as wet as you can. Well, so that's the inside, but I'm going to take the outside off as well. And again, I'm going to do that the same way with a cut. I'm not just going to peel it. Just make a sort of incision there. Okay, so that was largely successful, but there's one little area here where I pulled it upwards and I've got this smear, which I don't want. So I thought that's a perfect opportunity to show you how I'd go about fixing that. It's very simple. All you need is a Q-tip and some white spirit. So what I'm going to do is just dip that in some white spirit, wring it out a little bit, so I don't want it soaking wet. I'm going to use my marl stick so that I can be really accurate. Just move my light a little bit because it was casting a shadow and I couldn't see very well. So it's important placement of the light. Let's just start. There we go. It's looking better. Just gonna Do that again. Again, let's just wring it out. You don't want it soaking. Getting there, starting so that you're not touching it, moving in ever so slightly. There, much tidier. Right, now I'm just going to leave that to dry and we'll come back and do the next bit. Right, so the black paint has dried and it's looking good. The glass obviously needs a clean where it was acid etched. It's still quite murky, but that will come up nice. And the next step, I'm going to just apply another layer of paint, but that's going to be around the kind of outside of the letter. You don't have to do it in this order. You could wait for this bit till last, and the reason you might do that is if you wanted to do something like water marbling. I'll put a link to my video on water marbling up here. That would mean that you'd have to do that last. So all of the processes that I'm going to do after this, it's quite okay to do them in a different order. I'm going to do it like this just because I want a kind of solid colour for this piece. So I'm going with one shot rubine red, or rubine, and I'm just going to paint that all around the kind of outside of the letter. Okay, so that's had 2 coats of the red paint, just because I don't want any of the gold leaf showing through, and I've left this to dry overnight. Just give it an extra long time to dry because I've now got to clean this glass quite thoroughly. And, you know, even if it's slightly tacky, you'll end up smearing paint or just getting all paper towel stuck to the back of the glass. So let's just give this a proper clean, and this is really important because I'm now going to apply the little pieces that are going to act as the punties. So right, so now on to the magic part. And what I've got here are watch crystals. And what I mean by that is the sort of domed piece of glass that goes on a watch. I just ordered them off eBay. These were £2 each. They're glass. You can buy acrylic ones, but I made sure I got glass. And I've got a 22mm one and 2 20mm ones because I'm going to have the bigger one in the centerpiece. So what I need to do is also make sure these are thoroughly clean. So I've got a lens cloth and I've got some lens cleaner. Nothing special about this, any old lens cleaner will do. So I'm just going to pop this in here. Give this a squirt. So, right. That's got on there, but that's not going to hurt. Looking good. Now, the reason you need to be so careful, well not so careful, but so thorough in the cleaning is because ordinarily when you clean the back of the glass, you've got 2 sides. You've got the front side, which you can just keep cleaning after the fact, and the back side that you're going to lay gold leaf on. In this case, we've got 4 sides. So you've got the front, back of the glass, back of the watch crystal, and the front of the watch crystal, if that makes sense. So, you know, got to be super thorough and make sure that all of the bits that are going to be sort of contained are completely cleaned, because there's no going back and redoing it. Right, so what I do is need a little bit of a further clean, maybe. Right, that looks pretty good. And that has I've just dropped that in place in the circle. I made the circles a little bit bigger than the watch crystals, and that's because I need to glue this in place, and I'm going to use UV quick setting glue for that. So let me just change that camera angle and then we'll crack on with that. Okay, so in the pack with the glue, you get 2 tubes of glue and a little UV light. And this glue is liquid until you expose it to the UV light, and then it instantly goes hard. So it's brilliant to work with. Make sure this is exactly where I need it to be. I'm just going to do a little test piece of the glue to make sure it's coming out okay. Right, that's cool. I'm going to use this to hold it in place. So, I don't think I've ever filmed anything as intricate as this, so I really hope this comes out well. Let's get a light on it. Right, so that's it. I'm just gonna try and run that really evenly around this, and then just to get that set in place, let's just get that. That is fixed firm, and I can kind of run this glue around without having to worry about my hand slipping or anything like that. So. Right, they're on there, and obviously not very tidily, but what we've got to do now is clean up that glue. And at the moment, you know, anything that is still exposed to air isn't absolutely solid. It's the stuff that's connecting it, where you've got the kind of, you know, if you glue two surfaces together, that's pretty solid, but anything that's sort of overspill isn't. A bit like sort of PVA glue when you're gluing wood. So I just want to kind of trim this off. So with a sharp knife, just gonna make a score in that. And peel that excess glue away. Right, so I'm all set up and ready to apply the gold leaf now. I won't do this as a gilding tutorial because I've done quite a few, so I'm going to put a link to those up in the corner of the screen here, and I'll also put a link in the description. So what I've also done is I've run the glue around each of these watch crystals again and picked it off again. And that's because I want to be doubly sure that when I apply my size mix, there's not going to be any chance of anything seeping in behind any of these bits of glass, because that would ruin the whole piece. So I'm now just going to switch this to a time lapse to apply the gold leaf. Okay, so here we are, the finished piece. And in summary, there's pros and cons. Firstly, I want to thank Patrick for this brilliant tip. I've had loads of fun making this and experimenting with a new technique. So before we go on to this actual technique, I made a mistake with the acid etching here. So you might have noticed earlier on when that paste was a bit thick, I added some water. The reason I added water is because I don't want to add more armor etch, because it's got that kind of abrasive compound in that gives you the kind of frosted glass look. What I didn't take into account is the fact when I add water, I dilute that acid, and hence I should have done it for longer. I've done it for the standard 35 minutes. Really should have probably done it for 45 minutes. So my acid etch isn't perfect. So let's just address that mistake now. So on to the actual punties. The pros, it's a really nice effect. It's really cheap and it's really easy. The cons, it's an absolute nightmare to gild. So where the kind of glass meets the watch crystal, it's like a 90-degree, really sharp angle. Getting gold leaf in there is difficult. Now, you might see from the video of me sort of showing a close-up of this that it's not perfect. The problem is I ran out of gold leaf. So I'm sure it can be done. It's just time's ticking on. I want to get this video out. So I've just put it out there. So you might see a few gaps, but easily touched up. But again, it's just going to be a bit like glue chipping, I suppose, in the sense that rather than 2 coats, you might do 3 coats of gold leaf and really push it into the kind of areas where the watch crystals meet the glass. But overall, really fun experiment. I'm happy with the outcome other than the acid etching mistake. So probably not one I'll put on display, again, only because of my etching mistakes, but it's all trial and error. I won't make that mistake again. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please subscribe to the channel and click the little thumbs up icon, and please share it with anyone else who you think might enjoy it. So, till next time, cheers.